I'm Jackie Wilhelm. I'm the Director of Children's Ministry at Crossroads Christian Church in St. Matthews. This month, we're talking about creativity. Did you ever wonder why God made you really good at some things and, well, maybe not as good as you wish you were at some others? I wonder if it has anything to do with your purpose. After all, God created you for a purpose. God created each one of us for a purpose. In today's Bible story, we're going to study a young lady who found out what her purpose was. Today's Bible story comes from the book of Esther. Now, Esther is in the Old Testament, so it's kind of in the front of the book, but really, gosh, it's almost in the middle. Esther is a story about a young lady who is Jewish who lives in a foreign land. That land is called Persia, and the king of Persia is Xerxes.
Esther was the queen of Persia, but she didn't become queen in the usual way. Her father wasn't a king, and she wasn't from an important family. In fact, Esther was Jewish. Many of God's people had been captured and brought to Babylon when their home Judah was conquered. Then Babylon was taken over by Persia. So Esther grew up in Persia, a land that was not her own. When Esther's parents died, her cousin Mordecai raised her as his own daughter. At the time of our story, a man named Xerxes was the king of Persia. Xerxes got angry and fired his queen Vashti simply because she refused to show up for a wild party. Yikes! After that, the king decided to hold a contest to find a new queen. He ordered his officials to gather the most beautiful young women from throughout the entire empire. One of them was Esther. Mordecai warned Esther not to tell anyone she was from a Jewish family. The king ordered the young women to go through an entire year of beauty treatment. Wow, that sounds exhausting. When the year was over and the king met Esther, he liked her better than any of the others, so he made her the queen in place of Vashti. King Xerxes had a staff member named Haman. Xerxes gave Haman the most important job in the kingdom besides his. Since Haman had such an important position, all of the other officials were supposed to bow down to him. There was one man who refused to bow to Haman. Mordecai knew that he should only bow to God, not to a person. And Haman was mad. When he found out that Mordecai was Jewish, he made a plan to destroy not only Mordecai, but also all of the other Jewish people in the land. Haman went to King Xerxes. Haman told the king that there was a group of people who lived separately from everyone else in his kingdom, and they did not obey the king's laws. Haman offered to destroy this group of people for the king. King Xerxes agreed, and he sent a decree that all the Jewish people should be killed. So Mordecai and all the other Jews in the kingdom were terrified. When Esther found out that he was upset, she sent word to find out what was wrong. So Mordecai sent word to Esther, telling her all the awful things that Haman had done and begging her to please talk to Xerxes to get them some help. But then Esther sent word back to him, reminding him that going to Xerxes could be really dangerous. If he didn't want you in his throne room, things were going to go badly for you. But Mordecai sent word back to Esther. Who knows? It's possible that you became queen for a time just like this. Esther realized that Mordecai was right. So she sent word back asking him and the Jewish people to fast for 3 days, and she promised to do that too, along with all of her attendants. And on the 3rd day, she was ready to go into the throne room. And shocker, King Xerxes was not mad. He was happy to see Esther. He reached out toward her with his golden scepter. King Xerxes told Esther he would give her anything, up to half the kingdom. But Esther's request was simple. She invited the king and Haman to dinner. Esther didn't make her plea to the king right away. She knew she'd have a better chance if the king was really curious. So even though he kept asking her at dinner that night what it was that she wanted, she wouldn't tell him. She finally just invited he and Haman to come back to dinner the next night. Finally, at the second meal, Esther revealed her request to the king. She told King Xerxes about the evil plot to kill off her people. The king demanded to know who would do such a thing. And Esther told him it was Haman. The king was furious. And Haman, well, he didn't get to hang around anymore. King Xerxes issued a new order that saved the Jewish people, and he gave Mordecai a place of honor in his kingdom.
You know, Esther wasn't the most likely person to become Queen of Persia, but God had an important purpose for her, and when the time was right, she used her position to save her people. God has a purpose for each one of us. You might not be able to see exactly what it is, but you can trust that the talents that God has given you, the creativity that God has given you, the situations God has put you in, and the people that God has put you around, those are all for a reason. And you'll be able to put your creativity and talent to good use for God's purpose. Let's take a minute and review our memory verse for the month. Psalm 145. Verse 3. Lord, you are great. You are really worthy of praise. No one can completely understand how great you are. Wow, that is so true. And I cannot wait to learn more about our indescribably great, creative, and loving God with you next week. Goodbye.